Dearest gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the ton. We are your effervescent hosts, your neighborhood-friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle-earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast, whose current chapter of her story takes place in Ohio. Settle down onto your favorite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the ton. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and deep diving into the connections of our favorite characters.
If you are not up to date with season 3, please go and watch that first and pop back once you are all caught up, as this podcast will contain spoilers.
Last week, we discussed the first Polin tete-a-tete at the presentation garden party. It didn't go the way Colin thought it would in his head. Today, we want to deep dive into the Danbury Ball and Penn's glow-up presentation. We hope to get through the scene of Penelope's vindication and hopefully through Colin's coming to make amends. What do you think, Tosh? Are we going to get through it?
I think that, as always, you are the optimist out of the two of us, and I'm probably a little bit more realistic, thinking it's probably going to take us 2 episodes, but if we get through it in 1, then I'm proud of us. Now, we must make haste into today's episode. Okay, so where we left off in the last episode, and we apologize because we did say in the ending that we had covered Penelope's entrance, but if we had kept that part of the voice recording in, the episode was going to be about 1:20 long. So we've actually removed that from this the last episode, and instead we'll be discussing Penelope's glow-up entrance look into the Danbury Ball today instead. So apologies for the confusion on that last episode, but we will be covering it today.
And in our last episode, we did cover the dress that she wore at the garden party. So we do see, we did discuss how she started the season, same old Penn, but it is time. It's time for a change. She's upping the timeline on our boy Colin.
I think when we see her come into the season, she's not quite same old Penn though, because immediately, and I think I discussed this on the now what is called the bonus episodes when it was just myself recording, but I discussed how we see Penelope come back in the season, and as Lady Whistledown, she has changed tact and she has gone back to writing the way that I think she was more intended to in the books. The way that she wrote was very much to be the voice for the unseen. And so first episode, we see her discussing all the new debutantes of the season, and she is really highlighting people that may not be the first choice or who may just need that little push to be seen. Hey, look at these women. They're actually spectacular if you just take the time to see them. So I think Penelope this season, she comes back, although she is still wearing the same clothing, you can see the changes that she has made from her separation from Eloise and Colin over the summer. She has come back a different person, and we just have that final little piece of her clothing choices to finish that transformation.
Well, and I think that we actually see kind of a mirror image, because Colin comes back super dressed up, very fashionable, very dashing, distinguished, but he didn't quite grow as a person. He put on a persona.
Mm-hmm.
And Penelope does change in terms of herself. She's matured. I think that she's a little worse for wear because she's completely under, the only people she hangs out with is pretty much her mother and her sisters.
She's hardened
there's
herself.
There's no light, and hers is more like the clothing is the final piece, and then they pretty much are on the same level, on the same playing field, because she sees he came back completely, I mean, not to her, but to a lot of people, unrecognizable, and it kind of inspired her to do the same thing. She believes he's doing it for attention, as Whistledown says. Yeah, she says she believes he did it for attention, but she didn't, even though she put him down about it in Whistledown. I think she admired him for doing it because she, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Mm-hmm. And she does ask Genevieve to give her a look from Paris. Now that could be, yes. I want him to notice me. He was in Paris. I want him. Or she wants to dress trendy because he's like, it's all the rage in Paris. So there's two schools of thought there, but I think they both play in. I think they're 50-50 what she's wanting out of it. She definitely wants his jaw to drop to the floor, I think. A little bit of dig her heel in. But she also wants to attract attention, not from him. She doesn't believe he is a possibility. So
the thing that makes me lean more towards that she chose Paris fashion to attract Colin's attention, and I think it is part conscious, part subconscious, is because at the same time of Genevieve is asking, what kind of look do you want? But she also asks, so what kind of husband would you like to attract? And she has this kind of crestfallen look on her face as she says, I want to be, what's the term?
Sensible.
I want to be sensible. And those are Portia's words, not Penelope's. And I think she knows that they are her mother's words. And so in her heart, she chooses Paris fashion because in her heart, Colin will always be there. But in her mind, she's like, oh, well, Paris fashion is also really, very new age, very different from what everyone else is wearing. So it will make me stand out. But in my heart, it is because I am trying to attract the attention of Colin, even though I don't think it'll ever work. So she always has that hope. Even though he crushed her, I think she still holds those glimmers of hope. And we can see it when Lord Debling proposes and she's like, well, I haven't said yes yet. And her mom's like, what are you holding out for? Love? And scoffs at the idea, but it's not love. It is love with Colin that she is holding out for.
Yeah, it's Colin she's holding out for.
Yeah.
And then just the fact that you had to search for the word, not this episode, but you just not mentioned a different episode too, so it's fine. I'm vindicated. But the fact that she wants to be sensible and she says it like it's a good thing. I want to be sensible. I want a kind man who will give me my privacy. Sensibility to her, sensibleness, being sensible is like that's what she believes she has to be. She's not allowed to follow her heart. She has finally succumbed to the abuse of her mother. I cannot follow my heart. But under the willow tree, when she's talking about my prospects are important, I got to do this. And he's like, well, that is sensible, which is my favorite. That's so rom-com-y. It's dripping rom-com. Just the way he says it. I love it.
Ooh. So now that you've mentioned willow tree, and I know that everything in Bridgerton is done very specifically, it has a symbolic reference of sorrow and mourning. And this is the part where she says, we'll talk about this in the episode when we get to it. But
write that down.
Yeah, you just triggered like a memory in me that because everything in Bridgerton, every flower, every background drop, no matter what no matter how casual you think it is almost always very specifically chosen. And I know Jess Brownell said, some things the fans read into and it's not the way that they intended it, but they love that we've taken it that way. And I think that's the beauty of Bridgerton is we can find symbolism in absolutely, and we will find the symbolism in every single. There will not be a single rock unturned by us. So prepare for that journey, because we don't do shallow over here. Everything is a long, drawn out, pulled apart moment.
Well, that's perfect too. Back to sensible and the choice of words. She believes this is what she has to be. And in that moment under the tree, he's saying it, Ken, why are you being sensible? Why now? Sensible is the ickiest tasting word in his mouth. He didn't even want to say it. But and looking at what she chooses to wear to the Danbury Ball and getting into her glow up, what she asked for, I want to point out her jewelry because we've always seen Penelope in very whimsical necklaces and stuff. They almost always are charms of flowers. The two necklaces that she wears prior to going to the Danbury Ball are both the colors exactly match her outfit. They pull the colors out of it, but it's strings of flowers and little, I believe one is a little butterfly, charms of butterflies and flowers. They're very whimsical and they're very young. They're something I would buy for a teenage girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when she comes out in her new look,
she's a woman.
She is wearing just a gold necklace with little, probably diamonds.
Yeah.
Understated earrings, just little drop down earrings. But everything from head to toe. I mean, even her little slippers are just, they're silver, white. They're not like her little pink ones. She didn't just glow up. She growed up. She grew up.
She was letting the ton know.
Clothing.
She was letting Sorry. She was letting the Ton know that she is now a woman and is now ready for marriage prospect. And
Yes.
I can't even remember if we've actually talked about this yet on this podcast. The fact that I wonder how many people actually thought, I think we did talk about this, how maybe we talked about in the dress moment. I think we talked about this in the dress moment glow up conversation. So it was in the previous episode, but we cut that part out. So we will talk about it again. And if we have already talked about it, I apologize. But the moment that I wonder how much the Ton actually believes that Penelope and Colin are courting. We hear last season, the last episode of last season, Lord Fife and his little cronies, the Lord Squad, as we call them, that they're questioning Colin as to whether he is courting. And there are multiple scenes in this. And literally as Colin runs out to go meet Penelope after this moment, you know, the guys say, oh, the Featherington girl, like, you know, why do you want to go after her? And I wonder how many people actually do believe that they are courting, just like in the first season, the reason that Simon uses Daphne in the beginning to avoid the mamas. I wonder how many people thought that because Colin was courting Penelope, or they believed it as such, that they have not openly courted her themselves, because no one wants to go up against the Bridgerton. Everyone knows that the Bridgertons are absolutely formidable foes. We see that in season 2. The poor guy who's trying to court Edwina, no chance. And he knows it. He's like, why am I even here? Like, I can't compete with that. And
he goes and he golden retrieves for Anthony. Like, I'll go get them drinks.
Yeah.
Because he knows. He knows.
Does. He knows, like, and it is very much that whole standing in society when someone else who's bigger and badder than you comes along, you kind of have to step aside and do their bidding, because it's a hierarchy and you have to abide by the social hierarchy. So I think.
And the Bridgertons are up there.
They are. And even though they're only a Viscount, they're only second in standing, they are said to have the wealth of an Earl, which is one up again. And I'm actually surprised that Julia Quinn did not give them a higher standing in society, because she, I think, maybe wrote this one a little bit wrong. I think they should have been possibly an Earl family, or even like maybe not Duke, because they needed to make it so that Daphne was stepping up in society, but even just one below him, which would be so it goes Baron and Baroness, Viscount, Viscountess, Earl, Countess, Marquise and Marchioness, and then Duke and Duchess. So I think realistically, like, I think the Bridgerton family, it would make a lot more sense for the amount of respect that they hold in society if they were Marquess and Marchioness. Yeah. So it would make more sense for them to be of that kind of status. The way that everyone else in society kind of treats them doesn't really align with the fact that they are the second lowest in standing in society, really.
Well, and I think they're the standing in society is based on how long they've held their title, because as we learn in season 3 with what Portia's going through with Mr. Dundas, it can be taken away. You have to follow the rules. You have to do the bidding of the queen. You have to, you know, be do everything you can to be the epitome of what the king and queen believe that title to be, or it can be stripped from you. So the fact that they're 9 generations deep is why their standing is what it is. And it needs to be lower, because we already have 2 daughters that have married up, because Lord Kilmartin is an earl.
Yes.
So 2 of their daughters have married up. So,
but they could have still, that Violet views her children, it would have never been an issue. I think it's great that Daphne set the precedence by marrying up. So she still could have married a Jew. She still would have married up. But I don't think that Violet would have ever seen Francesca as marrying an earl as marrying down, because she's still very, very high in society. And obviously, as we know, there are different wealth statuses within each title, and they have a glorified castle. Kind of like in my mind, I'm very much picturing Pride and Prejudice, like his estate, like the whole that in my mind is kind of,
they own
Carmarthen.
land.
Yeah. So I'm picturing that as Carmarthen, because like obviously we know that she goes like traipsing through these lands after John passes away. She goes hiking, gets caught out, you know. So it is substantial land as well.
Yeah, because landowners are actually the highest echelon of each title, because they own land.
Yeah.
So but yeah, so is she, and I agree with you. And you're talking about like what they say when he runs after her, and we're gonna call this the first time, because he runs after her, because when she takes her cloak off and she's coming down the stairs, all eyes are on her. And just calling this out there, I believe it's Lauren McDonald. I should really write down all these names.
Yeah.
But Mr. Albion Finch, you are green flags all day. You are so proud of Penelope. We love Finch.
We stan an Albion Finch. He is our king. He is the absolute sweetest little sweetie pie in all the lands. You are apple pie, Mr. Finch. Yeah. You are what many husbands should aspire to be. You are not egotistical. You are not I'm an alpha male. None of that.
No.
He is supportive
You
and
love your
loving.
wife, but you can give another young lady her flowers.
And it is not in the way that that Lord Featherington eyes up Marina. He's not eyeing her up in a creepy way. It is 100%. And you can see the pride, absolute pride in his face. And it is the most beautiful moment. And even Mr. Dankworth, who's like, I still love him. He's got a
he still is proud of her too. Like, they're her big brothers now. You know, she doesn't have male relatives in the titled name, but they are her big brothers.
Yeah. Mr. Dankworth takes on that role that I see kind of Kate does, as she just adopts all the Bridgerton siblings as her siblings now. She steps in and she's like, okay, these are my responsibility. Keep in mind, Mr. Dankworth, contrary to what Colin says in the last season, where he's like, these women have nary a husband or a father between them to protect them. And I'm like, oh, poor Mr.
Well, that's Mr. Finch. Yeah.
I'm sorry, poor Mr. Finch. I'm like, oh, are we just gonna discount poor Mr. Finch? He's not a protector. He is many wonderful, wonderful things, but he's not a protector. But in that moment, like, Mr. Finch takes on that same status as Kate, and he is the big brother. Like, he's the man of the house essentially at this point, and he is that big brother, like, proud, and it's a beautiful moment. I loved that moment. Because he has been that level of support that her sisters aren't giving.
She comes down and she passes in front of Eloise and Cressida, both looking at her astonishedly. And then we see her coming towards Colin, and he's talking. He is back, like, his back is to her. And his two friends, seriously, look at her, look at him, look at her, look at him. They are like, and if this was 2024, they'd be like, dude, did you and your girl break up?
Your girl's just into, yeah. So in that moment, first point, before anyone notices Penelope, those three boys are talking about what? Their conquests as they have traveled throughout Europe. Colin is talking about the Countess that we hear him later when he is having drinks with the boys, and they ask, oh, what about your conquests over? And he says,
Summer, yeah.
He says, well, didn't I tell you about the Countess? And he never finished his statement because Penelope interrupts his thoughts. And whenever Penelope comes along, instantly that whole hot boy summer that he went through completely goes out of his mind, and he is distracted. And my second point for that is that, as I was saying before, those boys know that there is something between Penelope and Colin. And so they're like, hey bro, have you seen your girl? Like, she's just walked in looking like a new piece of meat. Pay attention, because everyone else is.
Well, they're not telling him to pay attention. They're waiting to see his reaction.
Their eyes
are like, I seriously think, and that leave that gentleman's Lord Cho and Lord Stanton standing over with Fife on the other side. I get them too confused, but he is looking at him like, I seriously think he thinks Colin's gonna walk up to her, snatch her arm, and walk her right out. Like, oh no, Miss Ma'am, you are not coming up in here dressed like that.
It's like,
we
boy,
need to talk.
You got any carriages nearby? Because that girl needs to be ravaged.
For real. Like, he's looking at him like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be drama.
Because that was
waiting for the drama.
That was not so. This is the
four it's the season,
the four seasons
ball.
Thank
so
you.
It's and all the corners
everyone
are a different season.
But everyone else is dressed in very spring colors. Everyone is in pastels, lilacs, and the costume choices.
And a lot of citrus.
Did
you notice a lot of citrus?
Well, because citrus is spring. So everyone is dressed as citrus, and only the powerhouses like Lady Danbury is dressed in your autumn colors like Penelope. And in this moment, Penelope enters the ball. And as I said earlier, as to you, but I haven't said this on the podcast yet, is Penelope has entered, like how Colin has entered the season wearing his armor of his, as we like to refer to it, his pirate costume, his armor. Penelope has entered this season, this ball, in her Featherington armor. She is wearing green and gold. So a lot of people confuse the Featherington colors for citrus, because that is what Portia always dresses her daughters in. And that is very much because she resents being a Featherington and wants to pull herself away from those melancholy colors, as we are about to hear her say. But Penelope walks in her absolute Featherington armor. She is arming herself as a strong, independent woman. And she is a woman now. She is no longer a girl who's willing to wait for fate to happen to her. She is taking the fates in her own hands, and she is going to find herself a husband.
Very similar, again, if we're going to talk mirrors, very similar to season 1 when Daphne comes after the Duke breaks it off with her, their whole ruse. She comes to that ball. She descends the stairs. She's wearing that silver sparkly dress. She had her maid do her hair all super fancy, like do it the way you like with all the curls. And she made a statement. That was her plan. Make a statement and attract the prince. And Penelope, and I spoke with you about this, that Penelope was right there at the bottom of the steps. She was right there when the prince walked up. She watched Daphne drop her fan, but this was little baby Penelope, right? This was 2 years ago, and she's Whistledown, so she's very observant, words. Observant. Thank you. And because she has been within the Bridgerton family all these years, I believe she looks up to Daphne, and she recreated Daphne's moment. She was saying, Colin, sticking it to you. You didn't want all of this, and I'm going to find somebody else. She does the same stair descent. And mind you, she's been in Danbury's house before, so she knew how to make her entrance. She knew what she was entering. She came down them stairs. She walked right up the middle of the dance floor, and she didn't even look at Colin when she walked by, but she had that little smile on her face.
She side-eyed.
Knew. Yeah, she knew. I got his attention, and she kept walking, and he had to get a drink of lemonade because he was instantly parched.
He had to spit the tea.
Yeah.
And we
was instantly dry throat.
We like to talk about this in the season. He likes to sip the Penelope tea. He was like, that girl is making me thirsty.
And a little bit later, before she starts talking to the gentlemen that walk up to her, really, as she's perusing the perimeter, there, I've noticed it's just a ball scene. It's just, I believe it's like in the corner, sort of at the bottom of the stair, but in the, on the side in the corner, we see Benedict and I think Francesca and Colin standing there. And then the two guys that he was talking to when she walked down are over there. And it's definitely video editing. I don't think it was on purpose, but it was perfect because we know that Colin seeks her out in every ballroom. Like he searches for her, and he's looking over toward the other side of the ballroom. So if everybody who's seen the episode look for this scene, it's right after she walks down the center, but we see them in the back corner. So in the back part of the left side of your TV screen, you see little Colin looking over toward, if you're facing the TV screen, towards the right. And then they cut to Penelope walking up that side of the ballroom. So he's scoping her out. He's not approaching her, but he's definitely, she is clocked. He's got her clocked. He's like, she's going over there. Who is talking to her now? Like the only time I think he's really not paying attention to her is when she's talking to Debling, because he's talking to those two guys up by the door.
So we have Penelope. She's entered. Everyone has seen her grand entrance, and immediately the Lord Squad descend upon her. And we've seen them recently just to kind of descend upon poor Francesca, and she's like, I did not anticipate to be inspected. And I love that she says that, because I hate that for women in this time period, you are being inspected. Like, are you good breeding?
And you see your teeth. Let me see your teeth. How are your hips? How are your hips?
And I think, so the Lord Squad have just descended upon Penelope. And I think in this moment, she realizes that she has done the physical glow up, but she has not done, I wouldn't say the emotional glow up, because I think Penelope, as Colin says, she is perfect just the way that she is. It's just that for starters, I think in order for you to have like that nice, seamless, casual, easy conversation like she has with Colin, that she has with the Bridgertons, you have to have like a level of, one, comfortableness with them, and two, comfortableness in yourself. And she doesn't have that yet. So it's not that she doesn't have the confidence, it's just she's just not comfortable with these people. And so she flounders, and she is the awkwardest little sausage. And I felt that moment in my soul where you just cannot stop talking, because you're like, I'm so uncomfortable that I need to fill every single moment of silence with something so I can stop feeling dead inside.
And here's where we see her, and I guess it's part of the armor. I guess it's definitely a Penelope trait, because her and Colin are very similar in the fact that sometimes they say the wrong thing. She flat out acknowledges it, right? She tells him, like, I can't get my character to come out from my heart to my mouth, right? Sometimes I just don't say the right thing. And Colin's very much like that too. There are times that he could have had a better choice of words. But you just totally made me lose my train of thought.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Dang it. What was I saying?
That Colin says the wrong thing at times too.
Oh, her thing. Yes. And they both have a tell. Like Collins is the pause. And not only like he'll start to say something and you see almost immediately where he realizes, okay, this is a little too much for the moment because he's so emotional. I'm sure part of his training, like little Lord Kent, as he's in his training for how to behave in society. Colin's training for behaving in society very much was like, do you need to go have a few minutes to yourself? You're a little excited right now.
Your human is showing.
You're a little emotional right now, Colin. Do you need a few minutes? I'm sure he was that kid, right? Mr. Sensitive. And so you see him, like he'll pause, like what he wants to say, what his feelings are telling him to say is a little too much for the moment. It's too public. It's too whatever. And he pauses. And sometimes he even closes his eyes, just closes them. Like he's visually thinking of the words of his speech he's making or whatever. Penelope doesn't block. She's a very direct person. So she tries to catch the words with her face after they come out, and she scrunches her face, and like it's not just a closing of her eyes. She scrunches her eyes closed like she just wishes she could take those words back, but they're already out. It's like she squirted all the toothpaste out of the tube and there's no way to put it back in, and she wishes she could. And it's not like she said anything necessarily like bad or hurting someone's feelings, but she says something that's a little too much, a little over explaining. I'm very much an info dumper, so I absolutely am I'm drinking tea with her. I absolutely get it. I would be like, same girl, same. So I understand, like when she's talking about reading a book, and my mother said it's not a good idea to read books, but I'm not saying it's bad to read books. Do you read? Like, absolutely 100% get it. But you see that, like, watch her when she realizes she's stuck her foot in it, she just scrunches her face, and it's actually super cute. But it's in all 3 seasons, all 3 she does it.
I find it absolutely endearing though, because if this moment was with Penelope or Colin or anyone even that she feels comfortable with, and I think once she gets over herself, she does find that comfort level with Lord Debling as well, and even with Lord Facilio, because she doesn't feel judged by them. And I think the fact that she was approached by 3 men at once, I cannot fathom in 2024 as a woman being approached by 3 men. And like we have casual friendships now, so like being approached by 3 men is not as daunting as it would be back then, but 3 eligible bachelors back then approached you where you have no backup. She has no mama by her side to kind of like help.
No Anthony.
She's got no husband to protect her, no big brother, nothing. And Colin even alludes to this later in the season. Who else is supposed to be that for her? You know, she's got no one there as backup, and she flounders because like it would be incredibly disconcerting to have 3 males who are all inspecting you, as Fran put it, inspecting you as, are you good marriage prospect? And she's like, I don't even know if I like you guys. Like, and now you're here inspecting me and my likes and my dislikes, and I'm awkward. And it's because she doesn't feel comfortable with them, because they have never been kind to her. They've always ignored her. And so and I think that is why we see her with Lord Facilio, that she is a little bit more comfortable, not because he's in a wheelchair per se, but because he opens up about
Remington.
Sorry, Remington. Lord Facilio with this horse.
Facilio lost his horse.
Let's gallop back to the point, shall we?
Yeah. That should really be like Barley the Book.
Yeah,
like, okay,
we'll
just gallop along.
Yeah, let's gallop along. So yeah, I think the time where she feels comfortable with Lord Remington is when he brings up Lady Whistledown, and she goes, oh, this is my people. Okay, now I can talk to you freely. And that is when he asks to call upon her the next day. But at first she was trying to be fake. She was trying to, and that's the thing, is I think these lords, they are very much looking for that prim and proper, and they expect a woman to be a certain way. But they also, I got this really creepy vibe when they were talking to Francesca, like they were asking her, what are your desires? Like it was a very like, what are your kinks? That was what I read.
That was 5.
It was 5. And I made a TikTok today that people may be interested in, my fan theories for season 4, that 5 may play into the Sophie storyline, the Sophie Beckett. For anyone interested, you can go check that out.
Yeah, 5, Stanton and Wilding. I think that's the 3 trifecta.
That's the Lord squad that I think are going to play into the next season, and they give very non-consenty vibes. Very, very, and yes. I think that might also be a reason why they've made consent such a big part of this season, is it might play into next season. Because as we see, they do put Easter eggs in, and Colin is very much, you know how they have little names. Colin, my wife Bridgerton, he is Colin Consent Bridgerton, and I think next season consent is going to be a very big factor as well, but more focusing on maybe parts with non-consent. So that moment with Francesca really like put me off, gave me the heebie-jeebies. And so then when they approached Penelope, I'm like, no, stay away from my main girl, like please don't do that to her. And you can see she does not feel comfortable with them. And these are the men that Colin specifically said, I would never dream court Penelope Featherington.
Well, that's who talked to Francesca, but not to Penn. Yeah. No. There's one guy that's the same, the guy that said, what makes you tick? Yes. He's the same. And you can kind of see how different he is too. Fife just makes people gross. And hanging out with Fife, you just are not a good person. So he's totally like digging in at Francesca, like, what makes you tick? Like, all, just egging on these other guys with her. But when it comes to Penn, these three guys are they're probably lesser known, and they only give her niceties at first, and then she's extremely awkward, and then they just let her ramble and talk, and then they're like, we should probably go, we don't want Whistledown talking about us, let's get the hell out of Dodge.
And I feel like that sentence was said specifically just for the point of, oh well, we need to bring up Lady Whistledown because it needs to make Penelope realize that she's shooting herself in her own foot with her own column, and that's part of the reason why she doesn't have a husband yet, is because she's been so focused on writing Lady Whistledown and leaving the party to write Lady Whistledown rather than staying and finding a husband. And I think that is a big part of the point. Penelope does not have a husband yet because she has not wanted to take a husband yet. And her descending the stairs in this outfit is her saying to the world, I am now available. You can attempt to court me if you would like. I very much believe that. I know that in the books she says, to Eloise that she hasn't had any marriage proposals, whereas Eloise has. Like, her choice to be unmarried isn't her choice, but she just doesn't have any prospects, whereas Eloise has had prospects and has turned them all down. Whereas in the series, I very much believe that Penelope has not allowed herself, she has not opened herself up. She is very much being like, do not come near me, I'm doing my job here, I'm getting the goss on everyone, like, back away, I'm listening.
Honestly, she does leave at a certain hour, and her mother says, like, I just thought your social meter dropped. And you just couldn't people anymore. I just figured you couldn't people anymore. But the truth of it is, like, while she's at the ball, she's conversing with Colin Bridgerton or dancing with Colin Bridgerton, or standing on the side trading barbs with Colin Bridgerton, and then she disappears. Okay. So yeah, she's absolutely only been in the purview and under the watchful eye of one man, and that's a Bridgerton. And there are a lot of people in that room that are not going to approach her because of that.
Yeah.
And then for the other half of every social function, she's disappeared because she's got a right.
Yeah.
And honestly, that says a lot about what her writing means to her, though, because Whistledown isn't just gossip to her. Whistledown is her writing outlet. She loves to write. And so something that is expected, she's leaving this thing she loves because she loves society. She loves the intrigue of it, the drama, watching people dance, watching people fall in love. She's said all this in the past, but she leaves it to write. Writing for her is it's part of her passion. It's what she has to do. She is compelled. Like, when I watched Bridgerton, I was compelled to start a TikTok. I was compelled to join groups, and I didn't even do that for season 1 or season 2.
No.
Okay. Right up this season, my favorite book, my favorite couple. Not my favorite book, we'll say, because I didn't fall in love with Colin Bridgerton until after their story was over. I loved Penelope. Penelope was my girl, right? Always. But Colin became the man he is because of Penelope in both the book and the show. And he just, seeing him in Eloise's story and beyond, him helping Gregory in his courtship hijinks, like
in the tree.
Yeah, I was just like, he is the ultimate Bridgerton bro. I had to go back and reread the book and totally had just a whole different experience. So this was my season, and I felt compelled. I'm compelled to analyze. I'm compelled to create. I'm compelled to just, I haven't felt like this about a piece of literature or acting or and I'm a former theater major. Like, that's how I started out. So I haven't felt this in a long time. So thank you, Bridgerton. Thank you, Luke Newton. Thank you, Nicola Coughlan. I give you all the flowers. You have really brought me joy, because I know I've seen interviews where you just said you hoped you brought the fans joy. And although there are things that I think are areas of opportunity, I've absolutely found joy in this season. And
Yes.
to see even early on in this season and talking about this, really helping us understand that how much joy she gets out of writing, that it's not, she doesn't write to pick on people. She doesn't write to make fun of people. She writes because she loves it, and she wants to entertain people, and she wants to kind of be seen. Yes, she's hiding behind a persona, but she wants to hear people talking about it.
Yes.
Talking about Whistledown, talking about the writing. She doesn't care when anybody talks about Whistledown, the person. She loves when they talk about the writing and the type of person who would write that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the same as this podcast. You know, it's very much that whole premise of Lady Whistledown is we are doing this because, not because we want fame or, you know, we just have so many thoughts and so much passion on the matter that we just want to create a little community of people who love it as much as us and want that creative outlet just like us, because this season has us in a chokehold like nothing ever before. And Bridgerton is really, as I said to you, an outstanding TV series that has pioneered an entirely new genre that, yeah, we've had, and I mean, look at Pride and Prejudice. It is a movie from, I mean, depends on which movie you want to look at, but for me, Keira Knightley is it, and that's 2005, and it is now nearly 20 years later, and it's still many people's like favorite movie of all time 20 years later.
Okay.
And you know the books are much older.
I'm dating myself because Pride and Prejudice is one of my favorite books, but my absolute, and I love Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden. And this is literally me, like, I love the 1995 Colin Firth wet white shirt. And they totally did that to Anthony because of Colin Firth.
Yeah,
Colin Firth is the king. And I saw a meme. I saw a meme that said, like, we're getting ready to cast the Bridgerton bros. Make sure they look like they could have been sired by Colin Firth.
I saw that. It was brilliant.
I was like, yes. Colin Firth is their daddy. But I love the 1995 version, but it's super long. It's 5.5 hours long miniseries. And then you have Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden is they do it rom-com style, and it's like 90 something minutes or 100 and something minutes. So and it's like really how much time?
7, I feel like it was. I think I just watched it a few days ago.
Yeah, 97 minutes. There you go.
Yeah.
So it just depends on how much time I have. Like, do I only have an hour and a half before I go to bed, or is this a Saturday and I just want to spend the day?
It was a Saturday.
Colin Firth
and stupid me started
Jennifer
it.
Ely.
I started at 1 a.m. What was I bloody thinking? And then I didn't finish it till 3 a.m. because I went back and I watched the rain scene again, and I went back and I watched the rain scene again, and then I went back and I watched the dawn scene again and the dawn scene again, and the way that they rested.
What is the dawn scene? What does the dawn scene look like at the end?
My brain's not.
Colin's dream scene. All of that mist.
I can
it's
kind
very,
of,
and the way he walks in the long trench coat. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
You know what scene that actually reminded me of that scene, even though we're completely going well and truly off topic. That scene reminded me of The Breakfast Club. Judd Nelson walking in.
Oh, yeah.
Like that. Yep. Like, I'm coming to get the girl. You know, that's what that reminded me of. So Colin kind of, a little bit of Judd Nelson vibes in his outfit choices this season. Bit of a rebel. He is the rebel.
Like I said, he's Captain Mal. Okay, he is the original space cowboy pirate.
Yeah. Yeah,
he just didn't have space.
Yeah. Okay. So
he didn't have the verse.
Galloping back to the main
galloping
storyline.
Along. Okay.
Galloping along. So Eloise, in the moment where we have the Lord Squad and they are they are interrogating poor Penelope and she is just floundering. I think this is the moment that I realized, okay, Penelope and Eloise are going to get back to good soon, because you can see as Eloise is looking over Penelope in her brand new dress and her brand new outfit, she's not like, Penelope, look how fake she's been or anything. She looks concerned for her friend. She's worried. Like, she can see Penelope is just out of her comfort zone. She is very
she was being a mama.
She was worried for her friend. And like, you can see that in the first two seasons. Yeah, there were times where Eloise was not always the greatest friend, just as Penelope was not always the greatest friend and made some rushed, impromptu decisions that negatively impacted their friendship. But at the end of the day, Eloise always cared about Penelope and always cared how she was feeling. And she could see in this moment that she was well out of her depth. And you can see that worry in her face. And, you know, the season passes and then we have the Cressida scene. And I know that these are kind of side stories, but it does play in, it all plays into...
Well, it's how she exits the ball. Yeah. So we got to talk about it because she exits upset. And I'm going to throw this out there for everyone. You can come at me, bro. It's okay.
Come at me.
Lord Debling sucks. Lord Debling is a covert narcissist.
Okay, well, let's meet Lord Debling first. Let's meet him first, yes. Okay? Don't get ahead of yourself.
Red flags.
Calm down, woman.
Red flags.
Calm down.
Red
okay,
flags. Should we? Well, first of all, he comes up to her. They have never been introduced because she has to say, it's Lord Debling, is it not? So yes. They've never been introduced. So that's pretty
forward.
Yeah, I was going to use a different, I was going to use a very, very American euphemism. I stopped myself. I totally did a Colin pause. But yeah, brave dude. Dude.
So he approaches Penelope and, you know, he talks about, the charming lady over there giving you that withering look. And then he says to Penelope, and this moment like made me really uncomfortable when I first listened to it. I'm like, it gave me Lord Fife vibes in this moment when he says something like, why do I get the impression that you know how to make someone with it if you so choose? And I'm like, ooh, like, yes, this dress that she is in is very sultry. She's got her hair down, and you have talked about this potentially in previous seasons or just with me, I can't remember, about the symbolism of wearing hair down meant that you were available. Can you finish that part for me? Because I know you know more about it.
Well, actually, women did not wear their hair down. No. So it's very sultry. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Lady of the Evening.
Yes.
They get away with it because they are this season. There is not I do believe they had a different historical consultant person, and they pushed the boundaries of society to get the aesthetic they wanted, to get the vision they wanted. I've actually had quite a few discussions on the interwebs where people just don't understand how scandalous something is because they're seeing it in Bridgerton, and they're trying to make Bridgerton modern Regency. Regency's this is 1815, people. Okay, you don't dance during the day.
Sorry.
Well, now, and so the fact that she's wearing her hair down it's breaking the rules. Mm-hmm. It's definitely breaking the rules of propriety. And honestly, the only other person that we see that does it all the time, and she's a little rule breaker too, and we don't talk about it enough, is Philippa. Philippa wears her hair down all the time. And
Eloise
in the wedding, Eloise does at home a lot, though. Oh, okay. Not so much out in public. When we see her at home, her hair is down. But Philippa wears her hair down out in public too. And we know she's a little rule breaker because when the queen addresses Mama Featherington at the wedding breakfast, everyone in their family curtsies but her. And she's giving the queen the side eye. Like, what are you doing here? And I love that.
Yeah.
I love Philippa. Philippa's a little rule breaker herself. Like she's actually more like Penelope than she is like Prudence. And then we see that this season. Yeah, we see that this season.
Well, what I was going to say, this is something that we see from the books. And this is one thing that I really wish that they had kind of kept it a little bit more true to the time period. And I know that they do it for dramatic effect, but the season, the hair and makeup goes completely out of Regency period and very much into 2024 vibes. But the reason that I feel like they should have kept the hair more traditional in the sense is that the meaning of hair down was so scandalous back then. And they mention it in every single book. They mention how the men are like, and we even see it in the mirror scene as he's like unpinning her
Taking
hair.
her hair from that, yeah.
Hey, because he wants, and he's talking about how it falls down her shoulders and how it falls, and it like the hair leads to more illustrious areas of the body. And I think that was very much the sultry vibes of why hair had to be pinned up, because it falls along your back, it falls along your body, it caresses different parts of your body, and it's a very sultry thing. And so in the books, like the men getting to unpin the hair was always a big moment. And so I think Lord Debling sees this woman who now has her hair flowing down her back. She doesn't look like any other person in that ball. She is an absolute standout, knockout, sultry siren of a woman, as Colin would say. And so he approaches her with these kind of withering words, and it made me uncomfortable because we know that's not what Penelope is like at all. And to bring up such a sexual topic in the middle of a ball is very forward.
Well, and we have to remember too that, and we don't know if it's this Lord Debling or if it's maybe his father and now we have him, but in season 1 or season 2 there's some gossip that goes around about Lord Debling having a tryst with his maid.
Interesting. I don't recall that. I had to go back and listen to that part.
Yeah, it is definitely Lord Debling was caught with his maid or something like that. And remember, like, he doesn't get along with his family, so
which is funny. Which is funny because I kind of see him as like an asexual creature.
Well, and I think that he's supposed to be like the eccentric. He's vegan he's
vegan.
Yeah, he's vegan.
Vegetarian. No, vegetarian. It was vegetarian.
Well, he just eats vegetables. We don't know if he has cow's milk or anything, so he could be vegan. We don't know.
I think he specifically states that he's
a vegetarian. He says he forswears the meat of dead animals or something like that.
And for that
the flesh of dead animals, and
for that they barely tolerate me.
And he's a conservationist, which is very odd for that time period. But he comes up to her. They've never been introduced. He speaks to her in a very familiar way, and she has to go, "It is Lord Debling, is it not?" So she's heard of him and she's Whistledown, which is why I think this is probably the same Debling somehow. Although he doesn't seem like he would have had a tryst with a maid. He just doesn't give off. He gives off zero sexual vibes.
Actually, in that moment when he is talking about, giving that weathering appearance, that Debling I could totally see having a tryst with his maid. But then as it gets further into the season, we see him as being very, I'm just focused on my work and I'm just here to find a wife and it's just a business transaction. Yeah.
Well, and I took that wither line as he knows the woman he chooses has to be commanding because she is going to be managing his estate. He's got the largest house in Mayfair, blah, 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 blah. So she's got to have a commanding presence, which is interesting to me, and which it still sticks out red flag to me that he chooses Penelope. He's had to have asked around, who is that? Or he knows of her. They've just never been formally introduced because she had to do the introduction herself. But I think that, I believe you have the ability to make one wither is like, you could cut somebody to the bone. Like I believe, like, and it's probably totally just that dress, which is not her.
No, it's Lady. It's very Lady Whistledown.
But it's like Penelope playing dress up as Lady Whistledown.
Yes,
is what it is. Because all of her looks after this night are very more subdued and soft and beautiful and ethereal and amazing.
And I read that as this is the dress where she has separated herself from her. From her past, which includes Colin, and he loves the yellow as well. Whereas after this fight, she goes away and she then starts wearing those more softer colors. And the closer she gets with Colin, the closer she gets to the Bridgerton colors.
And that's definitely costuming. And if I remember correctly from the original Bridgerton podcast, they said that her coming out in this dress was like, she kind of went, oops. It was a bit too much.
It was a bit too much. But What I find funny, and I find a continuity error, is that even at the garden, when Colin comes to see her at the end of this episode, where he wants to make up and everything, she is already wearing those soft pastel colors. Whereas I think it would have been a little bit more impactful if they had still kept her a little bit more separated in those darker kind of Featherington colors. And then once they had made up and started spending a bit more one-to-one time together, then she started going into those softer pastels as she's coming back into her personality to show that physical transformation from like without the Bridgertons and then with the Bridgertons.
Yeah, but I do like that mint green in the apology scene is still very much Featherington green. It's just mint. And I think that we have this softness. She's gone back to her softness, and that's important. Like when Colin walks up, I mean, she was a firebrand. Like so Debling is watching Cressida. Cressida plants herself where she's going to rip Penelope's dress. He sees the whole thing. He lets her get away with it. Ticks me off, because if Colin would have been standing in the same spot, Cressida would have been cut down.
Yeah.
Yes.
That moment, like that scene alone told me, do not get excited about this male lead, because immediately the first interaction that we have because we're talking about mirrors in this season, and this scene was an exact like opposite from season 1, where Cressida spills the drink on Colin and Colin immediately comes to her rescue. He's like, I will not tolerate this. You will not do this to Penelope Featherington. I'm going to take her on the dance floor and treat her as she deserves to be treated. Whereas Lord Debling in this moment allows this to happen, and he does it in such a proper way, and he does it in the way that Colin probably in society's eyes should have done it. Oh, just an accident. Let me go fix that for you. And it was gentlemanly in the way that he's like, let me go find a maid, someone who can help you with this. But then he doesn't address Cressida in any way that like lets us viewers know that he is going to protect her. Like,
and that's a red flag, and that's what narcissists do. They find a way to demean you. He gave Cressida the out, knowing that she straight up bullied Penn. She did it on purpose, and he didn't call it out. So in the end, Penelope's going to sit there and wonder about her memory. Like, did he see it? Did he not see it? Is he a nice guy? Is he a nasty guy? And she's just in it. But I will say one thing for Debling, though, because Penelope is impressionable in this moment, and I do believe she needed a Debling type character. She needed a non-Colin, because she needed to see that she could attract the attention, even if it's not the right attention, that somebody other than Colin, she could make see her. And even though he didn't see her, because she told him all the time she loves love stories, and she always goes back to love stories, and could this grow to love? Like, he just shot her down all the time. I don't want love, lady. And like, he did not see her. He's standing right in front of her. She got his attention, but he never saw her. Never. He never saw Penelope. He's kind of like Colin in the fact that he saw what he wanted to see for what he needed. Not that Colin sees her for what he wants to see for what he needs, but like Colin sees her like as women among, a woman among women. He sees her like she is this, because she's up on a pedestal so high, he would never be able to attain her. And Debling is somewhat similar, where he sees her for what he needs. And he's going to bring her down. Oh, I'm loving this metaphor right now. Even though she's up here, he knows it. He's got to bring her down so that she settles for him, because he's not going to give her anything that he believes she deserves or wants. So he's demeaning her in this moment. We see him pit her against Cressida later, which is also demeaning, and it definitely creates a situation where you're trying to gain approval, and she's constantly trying to gain approval from him. And sometimes he gives the approval, but sometimes he doesn't. Absolutely covert narc all day long. But he lets this go, and he walks away, and she does the thing he says he believes she can do. She turns a look on Cressida. Cressida withers. She runs away. And then she turns that same look on Eloise.
And I was surprised to be honest, that like Eloise does bite into Cressida in the next episode for this act, but that Eloise in the moment, because Eloise is someone who is very outspoken. She has never had a single issue in calling attention.
Not this season.
But she's not someone either that is willing to see something in the moment and then talk about it later. She is an in the moment, unfiltered. What are you doing?
But she's playing the society game this season.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to follow the rules and she's trying to be accepted. So in this moment, she tries to apologize. She's very torn. She tries to apologize. Pen walks away, but she doesn't stand up for Pen in the moment. And that's really probably the unfriendliest thing she does. I mean, because even like watching her across the room, clocking her, making sure she's okay, stuff like that, but in this moment, she really was disappointing as a friend. Like, yeah, but it's like she chose Cressida in the moment. Debling chose Cressida. I mean, this girl came out.
Penelope saw it that way. Like looking at it from Penelope's perspective, she saw Eloise choose Cressida. Stand up for Cressida, go along with Cressida, not run after Eloise. After Penelope. Not go and check on her.
So she beelines out the door. And what I love about this with the torn dress is twofold. First of all, her slip, underskirt, petticoats, whatever, is pink.
Yes.
It's a Penelope color, very Penelope. Yeah. So she's still under there. It's like you can still see her soul peek out. Mm-hmm. There's a little tear in her armor, and you can still see little soft Penelopes in there. And then two, this when she leaves and Colin comes out and he says why is she leaving so early and she's in a charming dress. The fact that in season 1, when Violet was talking about everybody was watching Daphne, everybody's eyes were on Daphne, and Colin makes his quip about, well, how do we know they just all weren't looking at a tear in her dress? And it just plays into that because Colin's not seeing the tear, and it's there, and it's huge. Yeah. She's short, and it goes up almost all the way to above her knee.
The slit.
Yeah. And he's not noticing that. He's just noticing the color against her skin, her hair. Like, yeah, he's not noticing the flaws. And I think that's important too. He's not noticing the flaws at this point. Penelope is still his pure, perfect pen.
I have an absolute symbolism metaphor for you right now, because everyone has referred to the season as Cinderella. And I've always kind of like discounted in my head, knowing that Sophie and Benedict's season is meant to be Cinderella. But actually, in this moment, the metaphorical clock has struck 12. Penelope is turning back into herself, and she has to flee the ball with Prince Charming following after her. And it is very much that exact same scene, like the running up the staircase, the fleeing out, the beautiful dress is torn or becoming, changing back into itself. And that's like a really beautiful symbolism moment. And I can definitely see where people are getting the Cinderella story, especially with the two sisters, one who's a little bit meaner, one who's a little bit kinder, but still goes along with the meanness, so she doesn't get picked on as much. So there is a lot of Cinderella similarities, as well as the Eros and Psyche and those kinds of things. But in this moment, we have Colin yet again at the top of the stairs talking about the women of his travels with the Lord Squad yet again.
And I'm just going to interject a little thing here. So first story he's telling is about the Contessa.
Yes.
A story he's telling here is about the Contessa. When he's at Mondrix with the guys, with the Lord Squad, he goes, didn't I tell you about the Contessa? And we already know that Colin is a storyteller.
Yeah.
We watched him set the scene in the drawing room about it being a ball. He writes in his journals, I 100% believe the Contessa is a cover story. He has created this story so he'd have something to tell them, because they are unsafe. They are mocking. They are not genuine people. So he created a story that would be similar to their stories, because I think even though he did get his education and run around and all that stuff, I still think that because his heart wasn't in it, he wasn't in it, it was not something, and he would never, regardless, those two women, and we haven't even talked about the two women that were paid to service him were asking about it coming back the next day. They were smiling. Colin treats them like gold, I'm sure. And they're like, yes, Mr. Bridgerton, you can come back all day. I remember your brother. We don't like him. You know what I mean? Like, you are not like your brother kind of thing. He treats all women well, regardless of their station.
I feel like he is also packing a lot of heat, and that's why they may enjoy him a little bit more. But that's not my hand up moment.
Okay, I'm not denying that at all. I'm not denying that. What I'm saying though is regardless of
if you
what
allow me to backtrack for one more second, we
Mhm.
see the look on Daphne's face in season 1 when Simon unrobes and she's like, oh. We see the look on Penelope's face when Colin unrobes and she's like, oh, like her eyes are bugging out of her head. Like there is
she's like
there is no stick insect in that bug situation. It is a snake. It is an anaconda.
the man's 6'1".
Yeah. Going back to your
have
point.
You seen his hands? I mean, we're going down a rabbit hole.
This wasn't even my hand up moment. So I had to interject with that point.
Anyways, I think the Contessa is a Colin Bridgerton original. I think it's a cover story. I think it's something that he made up because he isn't the kind of person that is going to cavalierly talk about a woman like that, regardless of her job. Regardless of her station in society, he's a lover of women, and we won't even get into what happens to him in the second half because he's a lover of women. He respects women, and he is not going to, and that's why he doesn't give details. He only created a cover story. Tag
Contessa,
out, tag in.
The Contessa. So the reason that I 100% agree with you here that Contessa is a fake story is because not just from the books, but season 1, season 2, we see that for Colin, he is all about pride. He is all about dignity. He's all about respect. He is a gentleman as he treats Marina in the first season. And the only reason that we see him acting slightly ungentlemanly in this season is pure passion, which is a completely different thing from what he's doing in his overseas travel. That passion is for Penelope, for her mind, for her body, for her soul, all of her. That is not how he treats a woman that he is just sleeping with or bedding. So the way that he acts with Marina is very much gentlemanly because he will not take a woman, and a Contessa holds status. He would not sleep with a woman of social status and potentially ruin her and have to risk marrying her because he would be forced to marry her. We see it happen in Pride and Prejudice. If you better women and they find out, you will either get shot or you get imprisoned or you have them married. Like there are very limited options at this point. He would never ever risk himself sleeping with a Contessa and risk having to marry her or risk ruining her reputation because Colin has sisters and he very much respects the reputation of women. And I do not believe for one second
and
that
he's the son that loves his mother the most. I absolutely
100%.
believe.
Yeah.
I absolutely 100%, 9 bazillion% believe that someday when Violet Bridgerton is 60, 70 years old, she is going to be living with Colin and Penelope.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Just now?
For Portia.
Violet. That is Violet.
Portia and Violet. It's like the Golden Girls. It would.
Can you imagine a Regency retirement home with Portia, Violet, Lady Danbury? Can we get the Regency
Portia,
Golden Girls?
Portia, I'm going with, that's hard. They're all smart. Okay, we don't have a Rose. We don't have a Rose yet.
I haven't watched Golden Girls, so I can't.
What?
I'm sorry.
My gosh. Well,
I'm sorry.
Okay, Golden Girls, you got a snarky one and you have her mother who's just as snarky.
Okay.
And they're both sarcastic. Then you have Rose who's completely dim-witted. And then you have Blanche who's highly sexualized. And they come to live together and hilarity ensues. That's all you need to know. Okay. But I honestly think like putting Violet and it would be like the Odd Couple. Yeah, I'm just gonna end with this because this is my issue with Colin's arc this season is they completely took away canon. They completely took away season 1 and season 2, and they decide to put this outfit on him, and it just doesn't fit. He's not a toxic male,
no,
at all.
I mean, it fits his body.
So from here on out, So from here on out, dear gentle listeners, when you hear me getting delulu and talking about what I see and how I perceive something that occurs later in this season, and I am doing a lot of justification for Colin and a lot of explaining for Colin, the reason is because I cannot believe that man in the least is a toxic male. He never has been, not in the book, not on the show. You can't take character development that you've been doing for this long and just throw it out the window and say, I'm going to write a completely different dude. You can't do it.
Yeah, so I think my lovely listeners, we have yet again lied to you because we will not actually
No,
get
I
up
said hope.
Yeah, we will probably not get up to the fight because we want to do it justice, and you guys
I
don't
think the
have
fight and the argument, or the fight and the apology, could go together.
they need
really
to go together. Yeah, and then we've also got the Lady Whistledown story to talk about, and so that is going to be a huge conversation, and we are not going to be able to do it justice in like a mere 10 minutes when each one of those topics could easily be an hour. And let me tell you, when we cut these episodes down to 50 minutes, an hour long each, that is us filtering ourselves. As much as it doesn't seem like it, I swear to God, we could easily do an hour per each interaction easily and still have change left over.
Or longer, because last week or the week before when we recorded, we stopped recording the episode and still talked for like an hour and a half.
I know. I told my husband that we would take an hour and a half to record the thing, and I think we took about 3+ hours. And I come out and he goes, "Oh, did you finish editing it as well?" And I'm like, "Well, for starters, sir, it takes me 3 to 4 hours to edit a single episode, so no." But no, we were just chit-chatting, and he's like,
team building.
And I told him you said that, and he gives me the side eye. I promise next episode we will get to the battle between Penelope's feelings, because it is very much an internal battle between, I think, wanting to be back in a good place with Colin, but also she cannot until she gets out her feelings. Like Eloise is longing to be back where she feels she belongs, and that is in the Bridgerton drawing room, but reparations have to be made before they can get there.
Yeah, I think one of the big themes for this type of, well, and it's not quite friends to lovers because they threw in the argument so that it would be friends to enemies to lovers, or friends that fell out to lovers, we'll say. But yeah, they have to process. And I love it though, because you see how similarly Eloise and Colin process negative feelings. And Penelope is, I mean, yeah, she gives Colin the what for, but she forgives so easily and quickly. And the two of them just hold on for dear life to, like, they just don't know how to come out of that place, right? They get into that place where they're angry and they just don't know. Like, he's like, "Have you forgiven her?" "I want to." Like, what? You've been pining for her this whole season to be besties again, and you're like, "I want to." They hold on to, but Penn is like, oh, you apologize. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. Whereas for some of us, like even once the issue is gone, sometimes it is like, even once you have forgiven someone, you still had that feeling inside yourself that you don't quite know how to let go. And I think we see that a lot in this season, is even once forgiveness is achieved, they still have something inside them that's just not sitting right, that they just need time to process and work through. So I think when
Colin forgave her really quickly,
and even Eloise
just struggled.
I think Eloise also forgave her. And we see that moment where she goes, "Would you like to come in?" And she goes, "No, I'm meeting a friend." And I'm like,
dig.
Cut me deep. But yes, next episode we will get into the fight between Colin and Penelope, and hopefully the making up as well. I will use the term hopefully because it is us, and I don't think we can make any promises on that note, but we will get into the fight at the very least.
Yes, we will definitely be talking about Penn's, if she brings Colin in for a come to Jesus. Like, it's time. It's time, dude. I've got to tell you what's what.
Yes. So if you have any topics that you would like us to cover, or any points on what we have talked about today that you would like to talk about, please go to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton, and drop your thoughts in there. And for today, thank you so much for listening to the musings of two mad women. Yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
And Lady Patty, the Midwesterner.